Unit 6, the firm, owners, managers, and employees. We saw in Unit 5, in models of economic interactions, bargaining determines the division of social surplus. All parties gain from these interactions, but have conflicting interests over how these gains, profits, are shared. In this unit, we see how are wages determined within firms, what are the economy-wide effects of firm interactions. We start by analyzing how firms differ from markets, then use a model of interactions within the firm to explain how wages are determined and how this influences unemployment. Explore the problem of incomplete contracts and hidden actions. So what is a firm? The firm is an actor in the capitalist economy and a stage on which interactions among the firm's employees, managers, and owners are played out. Apple, Samsung, and Toshiba are business organizations called firms. A business organization which pays wages and salaries to employ people and purchases inputs to produce and market goods and services with the intention of making a profit. Not everyone is employed in a firm. For example, many farmers, carpenters, software developers, or personal trainers work independently as neither employee nor employer. While some people work for governments and not-for-profit organizations, the majority of people in rich nations make their living by working in a firm. Ronald Coase, the economist who founded the study of the firm as both a stage and an actor, wrote, "The firm in a capitalist economy is a miniature, privately owned, centrally planned economy." Firms versus markets. In a capitalist economy, the division of labor is coordinated in two ways: firms and markets. Coordination within firms differs from coordination via markets. In a firm, concentration of economic power in the hands of owners, managers, allows them to issue commands to workers. Power is decentralized in markets, so decisions are autonomous and voluntary. Traditionally, economists had focused on the market and the competitive setting of prices. Herbert Simon, an economist, explained why it is important to study both. Structure of a firm. Owners decide long-term strategies. The owners, through their board of directors, decide the long-term strategies of the firm concerning how, what, and where to produce. They then direct the managers to implement these decisions. Managers assign workers. Each manager assigns workers to the tasks required for these decisions to be implemented and attempts to ensure that the assignments are carried out. Flows of information. The green arrows represent flows of information. The upward green arrows are dashed lines because workers often know things that managers do not, and managers know things that owners do not. The dashed upward green arrows represent a problem of asymmetric information between levels in the firm's hierarchy. Owners or managers do not always know what their subordinates know or do. Not all of their directions or commands are necessarily carried out. Firms and markets differ in the contracts that form the basis of exchange. Contract is a legal document or understanding that specifies a set of actions that parties to the contract must undertake. Contracts for products sold in the markets permanently transfer ownership of the good from the seller to the buyer. Contracts for labor temporarily transfer authority over a person's activities from the employee to the manager or owner. Relationships within a firm are different from those in a market exchange. Unlike in markets, where the relationship ends once the sale and purchase is complete, relationships within a firm may extend over a long period of time, leading to creation of network of colleagues, acquisition of skills necessary for the job. These skills, networks, and friendships are called firm-specific assets, as opposed to the office computer or office space the person might be using. They are valuable only while the worker remains employed in a particular firm. When the relationship ends, value is lost to both sides. Separation of ownership and control. When managers decide on the use of other people's funds, this is referred to as the separation of ownership and control. This separation of ownership and control results in a potential conflict of interest. Owners and managers, conflict of interest. The firm's profits legally belong to the people who own the firm's assets. Managers' actions have impact on profits, but if profits increase thanks to managers' work, they will not automatically benefit. This creates a conflict of interest between managers and owners. To solve the conflict of interest between managers and owners, some solutions are: link the manager's pay to the performance of the company's share price, or monitor the manager's performance. Incomplete contracts are an important feature of employment contracts. Hiring employees is different from buying other goods and services. The contract between a firm and its employees is incomplete because some tasks depend on future unknown events. Some aspects of the job are difficult to measure and base wages on, example, effort. Incomplete contract does not specify in an enforceable way every aspect of the exchange that affects the interests of parties. Incomplete contracts are not a problem everywhere. Piece rate work, a type of employment in which the worker is paid a fixed amount for each product made. Piece rate pay gives workers an incentive to exert effort. Nevertheless, they are rarely used in most of today's firms. It is difficult to measure output in modern jobs. Employees often work as part of a team. So what determines workers' effort? If firms can't directly measure effort, why do workers work hard? Work ethic, feelings of responsibility, to reciprocate a feeling of gratitude for good working conditions, benefits for measurable output, promotions, fear of being fired. Employment rents are an important concept in understanding workers' behavior. Employees fear getting fired when they are paid more than their reservation option, value of next best option, other employment or unemployment benefits. Employment rent is equal to the cost of job loss, which depends on lost income while searching for a job, costs required to start a new job, example relocation, loss of non-wage benefits, example medical insurance, social costs, stigma of being unemployed. To construct a model of how employment rents may be used to motivate employees to work hard, we consider Maria, an employee earning $12 an hour for a 35-hour working week. To calculate employment rent, or in other words, the net cost of job loss, we need to weigh up all the benefits and costs of working compared with being unemployed and searching for another job. In this example, benefits of being employed equal $12 per hour wage. Cost of being employed equal disutility of effort, such as showing up to work, equal $2 per hour based on the fact that she applies effort of 0.5 for each hour. If Maria loses her job, she can fall back on her reservation wage, which is the unemployment benefit she can get from the government, equal to $6 per hour in this example. Employment rent equals wage minus reservation wage minus disutility of effort. So employment rent per hour in this example is equal to $12 minus $6 minus $2 equals $4 per hour. She works 35 hours per week. In this example, we assume it will take 44 weeks to find another job at the same wage rate. The number of hours of lost work will be 35 hours per week times 44 weeks, equal to 1540 hours. So total employment rent or cost of job loss over this entire period will be $4 per hour times 1540 hours, which is equal to $6,160. Labor discipline model. Employer's perspective on wages and effort. The employer cannot directly measure the worker's effort, but it is understood that larger is the employment rent, the larger is the cost of job loss, so worker will put in more effort to reduce the chance of getting fired. Thus, one way for firms to increase the cost of job loss is for the firm to raise wages. One way to think about the interaction between the firm and the workers is the employment game based on game theory that we studied in Unit 4. The game is sequential. One of them chooses first, like the ultimatum game that we saw in Section 10 of Unit 4, and is repeated in each period of employment. It works this way. First, the employer chooses a wage. As long as the worker works hard enough, she will keep her job at the offered wage. The worker will accept the wage if it is above their reservation wage. The worker chooses a level of work effort, taking in the account the cost of losing her job if she does not provide enough effort. In this game, the payoffs are, for the firm, profit, worker's output minus wage; for the worker, employment rent. We can graph the worker's best response curve where we have the hourly wage on the horizontal axis and effort per hour on the vertical axis. Effort cannot be measured, so we can consider it being between 0 and 1, where 0 means no effort to 1 meaning maximum possible effort. As the worker is paid more, he or she increases the amount of effort they provide. The firm cannot measure effort, but they realize there is a trade-off between wages and effort. If they pay lower wages, the effort they get will be lower. If they pay higher wages, the effort will be higher. Workers' best response curve shows the optimal amount of effort workers will exert for each wage offered. It represents the firm's feasible frontier for wages and effort. Slope of best response curve equals MRT, the rate at which extra wage can be transformed into extra effort. Firm's best response. To maximize profits, firms want to minimize the costs of production. Because there is a trade-off between wages and effort, the employer should find a feasible combination of effort and wage that minimizes the cost per unit of effort. We can figure out the combination of wages and effort that minimizes the cost per unit of effort by drawing isocost lines for different combinations of wages and effort. All lines are upward sloping, showing that higher wage is associated with higher effort. Slope of isocost curve equals MRS equals the rate at which the employer is willing to increase wages to get higher effort while keeping cost per unit of effort the same. These are the firm's indifference curves. The cost of effort is the same at all points on an isocost line. Cost per unit of effort is equal to wage divided by effort. At point A, cost per unit of effort is wage of 13 divided by effort of 0.6, which equals $21.67. At point B, on the steeper isocost line, cost per unit of effort is wage $10 divided by effort of 0.7, which is $14.28. Thus, cost per unit of effort is lower along a steeper line compared to a flatter one. You can also see along a steeper line for any given wage, effort is higher, so cost per unit is lower. Or, along a flatter line compared to a steeper one, wages are higher for a given level of effort. Employers cannot choose whichever line they want because they have to take into account the worker's best response curve, which is the firm's feasible frontier. In determining wages that will minimize their cost per unit of effort, the employers will choose the steepest isocost curve they can be on given their feasible frontier. They will choose the line that is just tangent to the worker's best response curve. Profits are maximized at the steepest isocost line subject to the worker's best response curve where MRS equal MRT. In this example, they will choose a wage of $12 per hour where the worker's effort will be 0.5. They would rather be at point B where they pay a wage of $10 and get an effort of 0.7. But this is not possible because it is outside their feasible frontier. This labor discipline model shows that the wage being paid in equilibrium is higher than the reservation wage, called efficiency wage, equal wages set higher than the reservation wage, so workers will care about losing the job and provide more effort. So there must always be involuntary unemployment in the economy according to the labor discipline model. Being unemployed involuntarily means not having a job, although you would be willing to work at the wage that other workers like you are receiving. Why? Because in equilibrium, both wages and involuntary unemployment have to be high enough to ensure employment rent is high enough for workers to put in effort. If wages were not high enough or employment rent was not high enough for people to care about losing their jobs, they would become indifferent between working or not working and apply an effort of 0, which is not possible for an employer to accept in equilibrium at a positive wage. Thus, the model implies that there must be an extended period of unemployment. Unemployment is an important concern for voters and the policymakers who represent them. We can use this model to see how policies that governments pursue to alter the level of unemployment or to provide income to unemployed workers will affect the profits of firms and the effort level of their employees. In order to see how government policies can affect the profits of firms and the effort of workers, we can look at factors that can shift the best response curve. Best response curve will shift to the right if government increases unemployment benefits because that increases the reservation wage. The cost of job loss will fall, thus workers will decrease their effort for any given wage or will want a higher wage for a given level of effort. In this case, the cost per unit of effort line that the firm will end up on will be flatter, indicating higher cost per unit of effort and lower profits for the firms. Best response curve will shift to the left if unemployment increases in the economy. This will make it harder for people to find jobs. It may increase the number of weeks it takes someone to find a job. This will increase employment rent. Thus, workers will be more afraid of losing their jobs. This will cause them to work harder or apply more effort for a given wage or be willing to accept a lower wage for a given level of effort. Thus, it is in the interest of firms to want lower unemployment benefits and higher unemployment to keep their cost per unit of effort relatively low and their profits high. Cooperatives versus conventional firms. This isn't the only way to structure a firm. Cooperative is a firm that is mostly or entirely owned by its workers who hire and fire the managers. Because profits are paid out to workers, there is less need for supervision and monitoring. Case studies show that in those unusual companies owned primarily by the workers themselves, work is done more intensely with less supervision. There have been many attempts to establish other types of business organization throughout recent history, but borrowing the funds to start and sustain worker-owned companies is often difficult because, as we will see in Unit 10, banks are often reluctant to lend funds except at high interest rates to people who are not wealthy. Incomplete contracts in general. Incomplete contracts do not only occur in employment relationships. We will see many more examples of incomplete contracts and how they lead to market failure in Unit 12. Incomplete contracts arise when information is not verifiable, the relationship covers periods of time, there is uncertainty, there are difficulties with measurement, judiciary is absent, and there are preferences for omitting some information. Principal-agent models capture interactions under incomplete contracts. Principal is the person who wants something done, and agent is the person who does the work. Example, the firm is the principal and the worker is the agent. Agent takes action that is hidden from the principal, which is why the principal cannot verify it. So the principal has to provide an incentive for the agent to do the work that the principal wants to get done. Hidden action problems. A hidden action problem occurs when there is a conflict of interest between the principal and the agent over some action that may be taken by the agent, and this action cannot be subjected to a complete contract. The information about the action may be either asymmetric or unverifiable. Summary 1. Firms. Owners and managers have power over workers. Contracts are incomplete, do not cover worker effort. Employment rents motivate workers to exert effort. An example of a hidden action problem between a principal firm and an agent worker. 2. Labor discipline model of wage setting within firms. Isocost curves equal firms indifference curves. Best response curve equal maximum feasible effort given wages. Profit maximizing choice where MRS equal MRT. Involuntary unemployment as a feature of the equilibrium.